We must confront the privileged elite who have destroyed a large part of the world. The government of the United States doesn't want peace. It wants to exploit its system of exploitation, of pillage, of hegemony through war. It wants peace, but what's happening in Iraq? What happened in Lebanon, Palestine? What's happening? What's happened over the last 100 years in Latin America and in the world? There is no turning back. I am convinced that the path to a new, better and possible world is not capitalism, the path is socialism. Even socialist dictators have an interest in gorgeous supermodels. Venezuela is a free country, and we will not be blackmailed by anyone. We will not accept being told what to do over Iran. We will not accept being anyone's colony. I'm going to show the world that I'm not a tyrant, much less a devil. Venezuela has changed forever. Mutual respect, that's what it takes to be friends. I have said it already, I am convinced that the way to build a new and better world is not capitalism. Capitalism leads us straight to hell. I hereby accuse the North American Empire of being the biggest menace to our planet. Racism is very characteristic of imperialism. Racism is very characteristic of capitalism. Simon Bolivar, when history led him, and as Karl Marx said, men can make history, but only as far as history allows us to do so. When history took Bolivar and made him the leader of the independence process in Venezuela, he made that process revolutionary. The immoral veto of the United States allowed the Israelis, with impunity, to destroy Lebanon. Right in front of all of us as we stood there watching, a resolution in the council was prevented. I think developed countries, so-called developed countries, should reflect upon the way of living and the waste of energy. Dr. Insulza is quite an idiot, a true idiot. The insipid Dr. Insulza should resign from the Secretariat of the OAS for daring to play that role. I've learned to appreciate the thinking of John Kennedy. Our voice is an independent voice to represent the dignity and the search for peace and the reformulation of the international system, to denounce persecution and aggression of hegemonistic forces on the planet. This is how Venezuela has presented itself. Bolivar's home has sought a non-permanent seat on the Security Council. When we were children, we were told that we have a motherland, and that motherland was Spain. However, we have discovered later, in our lives, that as a matter of fact, we have several motherlands. And one of the greatest motherlands of all is, no doubt, Africa. If we reduced the military expenses in 10% of the world, we would have enough money to save millions of lives in this world. I remember. How many minutes do I have left, President? About one minute. I am a president held prisoner, that I haven't resigned and I will not resign. One of the greatest rebels, who I really admire, Christ. He was a rebel. He ended up being crucified. He was a great rebel. He rebelled against the established power that subjugated. The only way to save the world is through socialism, but a socialism that exists within a democracy. There's no dictatorship here. I shook Obama's hand and I said, I want to be your friend. My hand is still outstretched. I am not Obama's enemy, but it's difficult not to see imperialism in Washington. Those who don't see it don't want to see it, like the ostrich. What a thing, Europe. Europe, the cultured Europe. We are the barbarians, the Indians, the blacks, the Southerners. How cynical is Europe? Chavez the tyrant, Chavez the strongman, Chavez, who wants to stay forever. While there, they have kings, my friend. What is the US government looking for? And the elite governing this country? They're looking for oil. Venezuelan interests are to be defended by Venezuela. The US should defend the interests of the US. Where are the US people, where are the intellectuals, who could put limits on their government? We must reduce all the emissions that are destroying the planet. However, that requires a change in lifestyle, a change in the economic model. We must go from capitalism to socialism. Fidel is a Marxist-Leninist. I am not. Fidel is an atheist. I am not. One day, we discussed God and Christ. I told Castro, I am a Christian. I believe in the social gospels of Christ. He doesn't, just doesn't. More than once, Castro told me that Venezuela is not Cuba, and we are not in the 1960s. Terrorists bombard complete cities, such as Fallujah, Baghdad, innocent women and children. We must be aware of consumerism. That's our tendency. It's the capitalistic curse that we were poisoned with. We should spend only what is necessary. How do you call the big cars, the latest ones? Hummer. Not a single dollar to import Hummers. What is that? What is that? What kind of revolution is this? One of Hummers? No way. Long live the unity of Latin America. Noam Chomsky has a book, which I read for the first time when I was in Spain, called Fear of Democracy. There is your answer. Fear of democracy. In Honduras, they had a sham democracy. It was run by elites, what was called a liberal democracy, but in reality was a false democracy. I'm a man with many defects. I love, I sing, I dream. I was born in the poor countryside. I was raised in the countryside, planting corn and selling sweets made by my grandmother. My children, my 2 daughters are with me, and I want a better world for my grandchildren, for your grandchildren. I've been in revolt for years against ignominy, against injustice, against inequality, against immorality, against the exploitation of human beings. An infernal machine that produces every minute an impressive amount of poor. 26 million poor in 10 years are 2.6 million per year of new poor. This is the road, well, the road to hell. They do not walk in the path of Christ. The capitalist model, the developed model, the consumer model which comes from the north, which it has forced on the world, is falling apart on earth, and there is no planet nearby that we can emigrate to. I even believed in a third way. I thought it was possible to put a human face on capitalism. But I was wrong. The only way to save the world is through socialism, but a socialism that exists within a democracy. There's no dictatorship here. This has been a great victory for the Venezuelan people. Convinced as I am, and as I am from my government, that the world needs a new moral architecture overall, I believe that this should be the first topic to debate in our world of today: ethics, moral. No part of the human community can live entirely on its own planet, with its own laws of motion and cut off from the rest of humanity. We're not perfect, but we do have democracy. The left is back, and it's the only path we have to get out of the spot to which the right has sunken us. Socialism builds and capitalism destroys. I wish Obama would focus on governing the United States and would forget his country's imperialist pretensions. I was a farm kid from the plains of South Venezuela, from a very poor family. I grew up in a palm tree house with an earthen floor. I painted. I wanted to be a painter. I sang. I became a soldier, not because I had a military vocation initially, but because it was the only way that young, poor-class child from the provinces could go to the center of the country, through baseball, which was my dream. The US people have a major role to play to save this planet. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.